I'm calling together this meeting of the Cleveland Heights City Council Housing and Building Committee at 5:31 p.m. And I will call roll. Jim Petrus here, Council President Gail Larson.
Here.
And Councilman Maddox is excused. And so we have a short agenda today. Council President Larson referred ordinance number 225-2025 to our committee, an ordinance amending Part 13 Building Code of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland Heights to update the city's regulations regarding public notice for the Architectural Board of Review. And we have Mr. Eric Elmy here with us today, who will be able to provide an overview to us. But if you wouldn't mind, would you be able to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes. Hi, I'm Council Zenobia Sheets.
Nice to meet you.
I am so sorry. I didn't recognize you without your glasses.
You're not the only one. So it must be a couple.
Oh, yeah, the braids are out and I have my glasses in my bag. It's raining, snowing, so I don't want to get them wet. You know, it's like electronics in it.
All right, nice to meet you first.
And let the record reflect that Councilwoman Zenobia Sheets is with us today as well. So, Mr. Elmy, the floor is yours to share an overview of the proposed legislation.
Everybody, thank you for having me tonight. Allow me to explain why we are proposing this change in our legislation, our ordinance. Of course, as we know, there is a BZA meeting, there is like a ABR meeting. There are two different nature of the business. The BZA will actually change the functionality of a specific structure which would impact the neighborhood, which in this scenario, of course, BZA remains the same. We'll continue how we're going to notify the neighbors for each case. But the ABR is mostly for individual home that they are changing roof or siding or windows, which doesn't affect or create any issue with the neighborhood. So we realized after searching, of course, prior to my previously Cleveland, but close actually to us, actually Shaker Heights, which I spoke in person with the people who are in charge of the ABR, and they said we do not certified mail the neighbors who are the applicant and the neighbor surrounding. So right now we are sending an certified mail to the person who's applying for the job, the project. That's fine. But then at the same time, you have to, according to ordinance right now, we have to notify every single person, neighbors who are adjacent or attached to that property. And when I looked for Shaker Heights, smaller municipality, not just Cleveland or Lakewood, they said, no, we don't do that. We just provide the notification to the applicant, appear to the ABR meeting. And they post on a conspicuous place, such as our website. On a website, everything is posted. The agenda is posted. It's not like something is not going to be notified. Nobody's going to be notified. They notify people through the website to everybody in the city. Yes, this is our agenda. These are the case, and explain each case what is about. So the process right now we are doing, Director Zanth and myself, we observed that is wasting our resource as far as time for the employees, as well as financially. Just 99% of the time, I can assure you that all this mailing you're sending, not even one person shows up.
Do you have any information about that 1% when they did show up? What was who was applying for whatever adjustment it was to their property or the architecture?
That was the project on the Cedar, I believe, those new condos, townhouse, with Paul architect, correct, which the neighborhood strongly opposed it.
Yeah.
And then even the neighborhood opposed it, they had the right to continue, the architect could continue, but for some reason at this point, they dropped it. They didn't want to continue with that plan. And of course, they found it by website because the neighbor right next to it didn't really care. But the neighbors like 2-3 houses away, they were concerned. And they found on the website that they came. Otherwise, they would never actually come to the site.
Okay.
So, and it may be the case that that we need some research, but do we happen to know about how many applications are submitted a year?
Approximately, I would say, well, we have 2 meetings per month, and I was making the calculation. Each meeting is an average of 15 to 18
Okay.
cases. And approximately, very simple, should I?
Maybe about 350. It sounds
Correct,
like maybe
250
about
exactly,
30 a
yeah.
month.
About 250, 285 to 300 plus.
Okay.
That's the average of the cases we're getting into our ABR meetings. And sometimes, they get continuous, sometimes, they may drop or somebody get approved, whatever is gonna go.
Right.
However, as far as my first year and a half here, so proudly I say that.
And we're glad you're here, sir.
Thank you. Then reviewing the cases one by one, and I was asking my permit techs, hey, did anybody showed up for this case or that case? I said, no, just only the applicants that showed up. And definitely, we will, of course, post the agenda on the website to make sure everybody's notified. And we may also notify people, the neighbors, for specific cases, for example.
Like, what would reflect
Large
that?
project, for example, such
Okay.
as, for example, like Severance Circle project, may go something this route, or something that becomes involved maybe with new construction, a larger commercial site, for example, which we may provide the people, hey, this is happening in your neighborhood.
Mhm.
What do you think?
So they could, but wouldn't be required to reach
Correct.
out. So on a case-by-case basis,
Absolutely.
as the department feels is necessary,
Correct.
we could reach out. And so I think you shared that currently it's required that the adjacent property owners be notified. So is it roughly 4 property owners per application?
Usually, very simple. This is the street, and you have a house facing the street.
Mhm.
So the 3 on the side will be notified. And sometimes we have different parcels. It comes up, an average of 3 to 5 parcels get notified usually.
Okay.
So, and of course, we have to do certified mail, which the permit technician who are helping or doing our office task here, they have to make sure everybody's single is being printed, is being mailed, certified, has to be certified now as well too.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like we were thinking, nobody's showing up and we are providing this way. However, Director Zanth and myself, and of course, Director of Housing as well, Alan Butler, we are really, our goal is, my goal for my division building is to bring this 2026 the department to a next level, which is going to be electronic information, digital. We should be able to now to provide people, they should be allowed to apply online for the permits. Why they have to come here? Of course, Shaker Heights is purely online. I don't like it purely online. People want to see sometimes people. And we should be facing people like, hey, sure, you have a question, approach us. And I like this approach because we should be there. We are providing a service to the public. And people should be allowed and able to come in person or apply online, wherever is easier for them. Just to proudly, I got to tell you, we just recently, a few weeks ago, we switched to added another service to our online services. Now people can actually go online and schedule inspection, request for inspection.
Right.
And of course, they can call or come in person as well. So we are trying to
It's nice that they have options.
Correct. Versus again, out of the sister city, Shaker Heights is purely online. You can't even see anybody.
So it sounds like, using the rough math that we talked about, it would be roughly 1,000 to 1,200 letters a year that city staff are preparing, certified mail, sending out, that they would not have to put time and effort into, that they'd be able to instead put that to something else. And could you share with us the types of things that people go before the ABR about? Because I remembered hearing, for example, about replacing windows. Like, that's something that, is important to have done, but is it really important for your neighbor to know, hey, your neighbor is replacing their windows. If you want, come to City Hall on such and such day. Could you give us a sense of the other types of things that people might go before the ABR for?
Sure. That's a great approach you mentioned actually right here. Like for example, windows or siding, I have the list of the ABR, what is required, what is not required. And that's something I mentioned before also. We would be able and may, for specific cases, like such as they're building a huge project. Yes, neighbors should be notified about this. And the notification, I believe, it shouldn't be just mailing, it should be also mass exposure on the website online. So everybody now these days go on their phone, they see more things. A lot of times they find the mail, I don't care, city, throw it away. Because they're afraid they may think a city is sending him a citation or a bad news. My goal also was this past year to provide to the citizens like we are not the bad guys. We are actually good guys because by providing building department services it's actually more beneficial for the people that they think. Because, for example, you have a contractor and you have a homeowner. Both by putting a permit, the permit becomes a legal document, which it shows this contractor and this homeowner were engaged at some point. And if there's a disagreement between them, then the city can say, yes, we inspected, Your Honor, the job was done, or no, the job was not done. So it would protect both parties at the same time, contractors and homeowners as well. And a lot of times, some municipalities, or I don't want to share any name or any specific city, but some of the residents may live in different cities and they had a bad taste or bad experience with the department. And the state of Ohio, which we follow directly, the rules, they're updating, they're bringing a totally new services, new image of the building departments. And my goal is to make sure we follow that. They don't want people being afraid, oh my goodness, I'm seeing this grumpy inspector coming to my house, I'm going to inspect me for that, they're going to fail me for this, what's going to happen? So we are changing this image by mostly simple thing, have a smile. And go to building okay, hi, I'm inspector, I'm not here to judge your house, I'm here to inspect, make sure your water heater is installed properly. And that's how it should be. People should know their inspectors by their names, you know. Of course, we are trying to not to get too many bombard the inspector with the phone calls, but I always recommend to the inspector, hey guys, when you go there, just talk to them. Listen, they may have a concern or something. And of course, you don't want to be late for your next inspection, but you look at your watch, you have a good half an hour to spend for one house. So spend your time with them a little bit. And this is actually what not just I want, the state wants this actually. Believe it or not, every time I attended the state training, they are working on this concept to make sure the building department is not what we thought years ago. It's a totally different image.
I had a question for you. So I want to put up a fence. I go and apply for a permit, or I go online and apply for a permit. Does that process initiate an appearance at the Architectural Review Board?
Good question. Unless if it's in the front of a house, it's visible. So everything in the front of a house, majority of them gets involved with the ABR. Like for example, somebody wants to build a brand new porch deck in front of a house. Well, it will go to the ABR. But anything in the backyard, fence, for example, if I look at the list right here, is only administrative design review, which is zoning and planning, and of course by the building commissioner, which should review this process. It doesn't have to go to the ABR. However, they have some cases which, for example, on the commercial side, I'm going to read to you exactly what is required for commercial side to go to the ABR. New principal structure, new accessory structure, all exterior modification, including siding or facade, which we have a new ordinance, new or alteration, roof, new or repair, addition to principal accessory structure, canopy or awnings, new alteration, new signage, new windows replacement, which is not like for like, facade mounted solar, for example, anything that is mostly visible from the street, and fence and walls for commercial building, not for residential. And of course, the residential homes, anything in the backyard, if they're adding a structure such as garage,
Sure.
they have to be rebuilt. Yes, they have to go through the ABR. but fence is not a part of it.
Would, one of the things that I've always encouraged people when they see activity in their next door neighbor's house that they weren't anticipating, for instance, window replacement, something major, we follow up and see if there's a permit that was issued. Should a permit be displayed on the dwelling that's being modified?
Absolutely, it says on it also.
Okay,
But majority of the time, people don't even pay attention because second page, it says the name of the inspector and the phone number, whatever,
Yes.
however you have to do. But I'm not gonna say everybody, but including myself, we are not perfect. Do we read everything? Unfortunately. And again, I'm not saying it's people's fault, it's everybody's fault. We don't read. Then we just, okay, I have my permits and that's it. They think that's all they get it, but then they forget even to contact for, on the second page it says, please contact for pre-pour, framing, installation and final. They even read that, oh, final is done. And then my inspector goes there and then, so, well, you didn't call for pre-pour, we don't know what it is. So, but of course, at some point, we get some sort of access to look at the part or section of the job at the best we can. Commercial building would be different. I always remember my former CBOs that I used to work for in Cleveland and Lorraine. They ask people to remove commercial building. Hey, we didn't see what's going on behind. Yes, and that's something I never forgot, and I will follow that if we have to, correct.
and when you, when permits are gonna be online, we should be able to look them up rather than having to call a department, right?
Correct.
Okay,
And of course, the citizen survey, I'm really glad when I moved here. In Cleveland, we used to use Axela. And I remember last February, I believe my former director Sally Martin was here. And I like her. Don't get me wrong, I left her on a good term and I liked her a lot. And I said, Sally, I have to move on, and she understood. And then one of the things was she wasn't sure if the program they are using is a good program or not. They use Axela program, it's called. Of course, I wasn't familiar with that program, but I found that once got exposed to the program used here, our program is much more user-friendly.
great.
It's a good, I gotta tell you, this is a good thing because two of our inspectors already, Reza Roshan and Michael Smith, both come from Cleveland as well, which I hired. And when I showed them, oh my God, this is way easier. They were right away within a few days, they were working with it. Which I would suggest to Cleveland, you should use Citizen Serve, definitely. There's a lot, believe it or not, I don't like to sugarcoat anything, but I gotta be honest with you. There's a lot of things we do in Cleveland Heights, which other cities are dreaming about. And I gotta praise you for having all those ordinances in the past being passed and is being implemented, from point of sale to rental inspection and everything else, which Cleveland, when I used to work there, just started 4 years ago. Of course, Director Martin was trying to update Cleveland, which copied a lot of your stuff here. I organized study here.
And we
I gotta give
copied
you
their
that.
stuff too.
So they copied a lot from here, but I think sometimes we have to sit back and give ourselves credits here, definitely.
So with regard to the proposed ordinance, removing this notification requirement, if I may, what are your general thoughts?
My thoughts are that I'd be happy to move it out of committee back to council with the caveat that you said on the larger projects, because we have projects where we need and desire neighborhood
To know.
input. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we want them to know what's going on and we want to give them a chance to comment. So whether that's a town hall meeting or whatever it is, so. And I would assume you and Director Zamf would make that call in terms of if it needed to go to ABR because of the extent of the project.
Correct.
So I'm comfortable moving it out of committee.
And Councilwoman Sheets, what are your thoughts on it?
I'm comfortable with it also. I did have want clarification. So, for instance, my house sits next door to a commercial property. And we've been like talking
and
in the
forth.
talk. Well, it's not a dispute. We're just trying to figure out if we want to put a fence up. Right now, it's okay because sometimes they drive across and they kind of use my driveway if their
Mhm.
driveway is blocked up. So for instance, their driveway had to get torn up. The apron was torn up this past summer. So they used my driveway. So we kind of shared it and it was okay, but we had toyed with the idea of putting it up. Who would be responsible for that permit? Would it be me as a non-commercial or them as a commercial property?
Great question. First thing first, I recommend to every single homeowner, commercial, residential, to I know it's expensive to get their survey done.
Mhm.
Everything has to be done by state licensed surveyors. They are not cheap; they're expensive, but working for 3 different municipalities, I have seen so many problems between neighbors, and they thought this is a property line, but later on they found it was not. And I know it's $1,500, for example. I'm starting whatever $1,200, but it's worth it because later on it saves you a lot of headache in the future because you know the surveyor would say, yeah, this is your property line corners exactly, and that's your property lot. So you know if that's on their lot, that will be their responsibility. If it's on your side, that will be your responsibility. A lot of times I would recommend to the homeowners to talk to their neighbors as soon as possible in a friendly manner. Make sure we communicate with them first versus going with the fist in your hands and yes, I'm gonna fight with you. So and find out who's responsible for that part. And majority of the time, commercial buildings also they would like to have a fence because it gives them privacy as well. They don't want to bother the neighbors. First thing first, you got to find out where is your property line, and if this is something comes following yours or on theirs. You may already have your survey done by contacting your title company, for example, or mortgage company. They may have a copy of the survey, which is great. That will save you a lot of money. Or sometimes you get those metal detectors. You check every corner, and you let your neighbors, hey, I'm looking not for looking for gold, I'm looking for metal. So the iron rod that they put it on each corner. Once you find this, and then you talk to your neighbor and say, hey, these are what we found, and you decide if it's going to be your property or not, and then how you're going to manage the defense. That's the best I can give you advice.
Okay.
And you're sharing a driveway.
No, I have my own. We have our own driveway, and it's kind of divided between grass,
Okay.
or with grass between it, should I say? But there was a lot of activity, like this past.
And the grass
past few
becomes
years.
ugly and
it
drove
wasn't even-
over it.
It wasn't that. It was just a bunch of commotion. So he did get rid of the tenants, but me and him, we have a great relationship, very cordial, and we talked about possibly working together and putting a fence there, and that was like his remedy for like the inconvenience with my house. So that's what I was
see.
trying to figure out, like what.
And also, if you know the property line, and again, if you decide to go with your neighbors, please make sure you have a written contract with the neighbor that says this person is responsible for 50% of the project, for example. So because sometimes people do have verbal agreements, and then when it comes to later on, the other party, no, I didn't say that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I have seen that before. Fortunately, it's not every day. Thank God. So, yeah.
That was my only question.
So it sounds like we're comfortable with returning this to the committee of the whole, with the understanding that for larger projects, folks would still be notified. Question, do we want to consider, while it would, take a little time, do we want to consider requesting that it be updated so that the requirement remains for certain projects rather than it being left to discretion and then someone potentially coming to us later and saying, hey, I think that this is a pretty substantial project. Why did they not notify us? So is it worth expressing this to Director Zampf and seeing, if he is able to carve out sort of an exception here where certain, particular types of projects would still be required to receive a notice?
How would we define those?
Well, I guess I would be open to allowing him, sort of expressing this sentiment
Yeah,
and allowing him to use his professional, experience to say, okay, well, we could update it so that the requirement remains for these types of projects.
I have an option for that. That's great. Plus, you have to remember it's gonna be posted on the website, which with our director, just Chance from the communication, we're gonna be working to almost modifying in a good way, updating our websites to the best and most user friendly, that people can actually find things easier.
Yeah.
And exactly, because even myself was looking at it, okay, why do I have to go here to get there? That doesn't make any sense. And why on the building page, for example, there's on the left side in the column, there's a bunch of stuff which has nothing to do with the building.
exactly.
Distracting, too much reading and too much other information. People get frustrated, and of course, I feel their frustration, definitely. And definitely like it should be able for every month, every single ABR meeting, couple of clicks, I see the agenda.
Yeah.
As simple as it is.
So what are you proposing then? We move back to committee of the whole, but make sure that Director Zanft and Mr. Elmley work on the nuance that we're talking about?
Well, I guess it really was intended to be a question for you two to see if you would like to consider reaching out to, for example, Director Zanth and saying, hey, we are interested, we like what you've put together. We would like for a requirement to remain for certain types of more substantial projects. Could you try to put together an exception that could be written into the ordinance? So if that's something that you're interested in, then we could certainly do it. Or if you two are fine with what has currently been proposed, then we could just advance it to committee of the whole.
Do you have a timeline by which you wanted to have this in place?
I would say as soon as possible, because we are also making it easier for the residents to attend the ABR. We are making it online available now. And the time also, we changed it to from 7 to 9 to earlier, 4 to 6,
Great.
which end of the day, so people can actually attend. They're not gonna stay. So our goal is to do it as soon as possible as December, beginning of December.
Because that won't get accomplished by December if we make that kind of
Right.
amendment. So
But what do we think is in the best interest, long-term best interest of the residents?
long-term, I think it would be good to have a definition in here of what a project that would be considered one that would come under
Impacting the neighbors.
yes, that the neighbors are involved.
Mhm.
Perhaps we could get this in place for now and continue that discussion with the administration and whoever's in charge of this committee. Because that could be an easy not an easy, but it would be an amendment that legal should be able to put in there for us. Amend, because this way you get this in place in December, they can stop sending those notices out right away.
If I may I say something? Remember, prior to become to ABR, any project has to go through the landmark, BZA, everything else they have to go through. So you're talking about pretty much like if people have to be notified, they have many chances
The big
prior.
ones.
Just
The big ones.
correct. Even a smaller one, some people like wants to go, okay, I'm requesting for this project, even prior to go to the ABR, has to be approved by the zoning and other things
Okay.
like planning, landmark as well too. Keep in mind. So it's not like just, okay, any of our large project, they have to go through the entire different committee and meetings, which we host them and we notify the entire city for it. So it's not something that's gonna be totally, people gonna be keeping it dark at all. So keep in mind, before ABR, we have all the other meetings as well and notification, which people are gonna be notified as well.
So I'm okay with putting this in place now
Okay.
with that caveat that in the future we talk about possibly, and maybe we see how it works.
Mhm.
You know, the first big project that comes up, what do you do with it?
Exactly.
Do you call this one and say, we need to get the neighbors involved? Because we'll hear about it if they
Correct.
didn't get involved, so I'm comfortable with it the way it is.
What are your thoughts?
I agree with Gail. with President Council, to go ahead and approve it and amend later as needed. I would say give it open by spring, because that's when you'll start to see majority of like the DIY projects or the home projects come to fruition.
So maybe evaluate in 6 months,
In the
see
summer
were there any
sometime.
complaints?
Yeah.
People caught off guard that they, weren't
Yes.
aware of a project, something
Yes.
like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Would it be okay for us to have a couple minutes at the next committee of the whole to report back and share our discussion?
Yeah, I can, let's say, 5 minutes, is that what you're looking
That's-
for?
Just to share with the others what we discussed and see if anyone else has any thoughts.
And I think ultimately that's what should happen every time legislation comes back to committee of the whole, right? So it could do it that during legislative review, actually,
Mhm.
Jim.
Yeah.
Just that would be the review of that particular piece of legislation.
That's for me.
Okay. So I won't add any additional time onto the committee of the whole.
Okay.
We'll make sure that everybody knows, yeah. Okay, is that all right?
Yeah, that works for me.
During legislative review.
So the only other thing on the agenda is other. So I do not have anything else today, but
And if you would just stay for a moment.
Sure.
This is not something to work on right now, but for the next committee, however it gets assigned, for the council committee, I am very intrigued by Residents First that operates in Cleveland. And I will tell you why. And you've heard this spiel from me before. Currently, we have in housing court these landlords that show up, or first of all, they don't show up until there are enough warrants issued against them. And then they learn how to milk the system to get continuance after continuance, and they don't do the repairs. For what I'm reading about Residents First, it looks like inspectors have the empowerment to be able to apply a daily fine to those particular properties where is it before it gets to housing court, or if it's in housing court and they didn't bother to show? Do you have any information you can share with us about that?
Sure. Good question. Even I don't do any more housing because housing is property maintenance and violations, and building is me, which is permanent construction
Yeah.
purely. But as far as coming from the city of Cleveland before, prior to here, we had ticketing power. The housing inspectors, they could write a ticket literally to the offender, for example. High grass, whatever, for anything, like it could be like a gutters hanging or whatever. Junk cars in the front yard, tires left on the front yard for like a few days, whatever. And could be write a ticket every day or every other week, absolutely. I remember prior to, that was, again, doesn't matter how many years ago, but when I was in Cleveland, when I became chief inspector, one of my inspectors says, "Eric, this gas station is like a junkyard. What are we gonna do?" I said, "Go ahead, check it out." And of course, the owner came up and they said, "Yeah, inspector, go write the tickets." I said, "Sure, he told you that? No problem. Now, put in your schedule, every Monday, you're gonna stop by 9:00 and write him a ticket." So he ended up, unfortunately, the gentleman ended up with, I believe, 13 tickets. No, it's gonna be 13 tickets and 2 violation notices. And when at that time there was Judge Mona Scott, she, "What is going on here?" And of course, we explained, and she saw the picture. She was horrified. And of course, it took some time. It took several weeks, but we got the message.
Weeks, not months.
Correct. So, but then again, unfortunately, a lot of the cases when I was a field inspector, not just for construction, but when I was a housing inspector, I'm talking about years ago, Lorraine and Cleveland, something I didn't understand at that time. And always, it took me years to understand the process. The court process overall in our country is slow.
Mhm.
I have to say that. They have the right to get continuance. They come with an attorney, and attorney requests for a continuance, and judge has no choice but go over the continuance. And this system becomes frustrating for not just the homeowners or neighbors who are suffering, but also for the inspectors my goodness, I have to drop everything, I have to follow up another one, I have to move on to my next,
Oh.
So it becomes, sometimes the case gets dismissed in court and the judge or magistrate says, Inspector, start over.
Mm.
And then I remember some of the inspector's face or even myself, oh my goodness, I have to go back again to start the whole process again because something was missing in the file and whatever. And I think suggestion would be, of course, you need to maybe to speak more with the director of the bank, Eric Lamp, and also Alan Butler as well. He's been here for many years and he knows, and he does still help me for a lot of things. Alan is a great resource as far as how it could be more impact. And I believe, unfortunately, this is they come to ultimates. Some municipalities they lean against the property, for example. Okay, you have this kind of violation. Well, we can't fix it, and here we go. That's your bill. It's a little hard-headed, but again, not everybody is going to be a bad apple. But it's a good thing to have enough tools, I believe, for the bad apples to make sure they get what they deserve.
I'm talking about the LLCs, the bad apples. So, and I would like to be able to, I'm just putting on the record now, and also Sally Martin could be a very good resource for following up in 2026 on this as well. So talking to Mary-elect staff to begin with, see if there's any traction there.
Yeah, I wanted to see, so Sally came in for a committee meeting, I don't know, how long ago was that? Maybe 6-7 months ago,
Yes.
something
In
like that.
February, I remember.
Was it
sometime.
February that long?
February.
Wow. Geez, time passes quickly. And
Well,
that
you
was
were
very
busy.
helpful. That was very helpful to hear from her. But
Yes.
we could reach out to her again and see if she
Yeah.
would be interested in coming in,
Yeah.
sharing whether there are any other updates from her work in City of Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then we could ask some other questions that have come up. So,
that was my other.
okay.
And also, as far as my experience in the previous municipality as well, not every INC or LLC is a bad. You always find from 10, 8 of them would follow the city because they don't want to be involved with the court. They don't want to be spend money on the lawyers and attorneys, whatever. You always find 2, maybe 3 from 10 that they are hard-headed because they believe they can do whatever they want to do, which is freedom. This is not true. We are free as long as we're not becoming a nuisance to our neighbors. This is not a freedom. And then, but definitely, I think it's a good thing to have, as you're mentioning here, enough tools, enough things that empower the judge or the inspectors to use when is needed. Because we don't want to be hard-headed with everybody. You have to be also rewarding people who are following our rules by some sort of a, I'm not sure how that could be done, but it's always good to just say thank you, simple thing to do, or to people, homeowners or LLC or whatever it is, you follow our rules, thank you very much for doing that.
We've also talked about having some kind of information on the website about landlords. Maybe you don't want to put the difficult ones on there, but maybe you want to reward those who are running a building that they're making the repairs, their
Correct.
residents are happy, they have a 5-star rating.
Correct.
So there's,
To have a column, you're suggesting, absolutely.
so,
And also, some of the municipalities, I forgot, unfortunately, that I was checking online for different states also. They have columns, actually, I believe Director of Communication and Mark and the other group, they were thinking, Focus Magazine is one of them, for example, to have the positive things of people are doing in the city. Doesn't matter, residents, commercial companies, or city employees, for example, the department, the division, what they are doing, and it's just a good thing to have a column online to provide or guidance or sometimes tips. Hey, you want to pull a permit, you can go online now and do this, for example. Just click on this website or whatever, it gives you more information regarding contractors you're going to find.
And Director Shantz is very willing to do
Right.
those kinds of informational spiels on the website or
Right.
even in the city e-news on a weekly basis. So we're in good hands with her.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
if there are in the future any like additional policy tools that you think would be helpful to have in your toolbox, please let city council know so that we could create those so that, you know, as you think that they would be helpful, you have them at your
That will be
disposal.
my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so is there anything else that we'd like to discuss? So with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 6:10 PM.